Ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about the night of the tribute, and Michael was MC that night and did just a great job. The guy who made it happen is the mayor of Glendale, and again, one of those guys that just shows up every once in a while. Mayor of Glendale, Mike Dunafon.
Yeah, had to say, oh, of course I did. It's an honor to be before you today. I know everyone in the room wishes we weren't here today, because although we expect it, it's still a shock when a void is opened this big in the lives of so many people. I met Bob, like other people do, under strange circumstances, almost as if you've been drawn to him like a magnet. Had that personality. He would look through you and decide whether or not you fit into his scheme for life, and his scheme for life was, are you willing to help another person? That was his criteria. If you weren't, have a great life. Bob called me one day and he said he would evaluate a person by looking at them or listening to them on the telephone. So I get a phone call. He said, I got a guy in Colorado Springs that's just gotten out of Canyon City. They're driving him up to Step. He'd written a letter, as many of the felons do, asking, because they have no place. You can be put on the street as a homeless person, on parole. Now, what are your options when you're on parole as a homeless person? Zero. And we are surprised that that person returns to the thing that put them in prison. It's nonsensical. Well, this person was being driven. His name is Jesse. Jesse was due to arrive at Step on Friday evening. Jesse had $20 in his pocket, and the fellow driving him had a date back in Florence. So he took Jesse, a two-time loser felon, and dumped him out at a truck stop in Colorado Springs and headed back for his date in Florence. Jesse gets picked, if he gets picked up for hitchhiking, he goes back to prison for 10, 15 years. So he makes a collect call and gets Bob Cote. Bob said, I'm going to get this guy up here. I like the way he sounds on the phone. Will you put him to work tomorrow? Sure. Jesse was with us for 5 years. Jesse was one of these little guys that all he did in the joint is work out. He looked like Adam Ant, and he could do anything. Unbelievable. You trust your life. Jesse leaves one night after an event, and he's riding a motorcycle, doesn't have any light-colored glasses, and he doesn't want to get pulled over, so he puts the dark glasses on and heads down the canyon. Behind Jesse is a state patrolman about half a mile behind him, and Jesse hits an elk on his motorcycle. The state patrolman said he could just see the bike tumbling through the air. So Jesse's on the side of the road, unconscious. They call an ambulance, and the cop gives him a ticket for not responding to a police officer and failure to produce insurance certificates. Jesse's in a coma for 4 days in the hospital. They don't expect him to make it. He comes through it, but he's got swelling of the brain. Now, Jesse doesn't remember that he had a ticket in his vest, or the bike is. So we get him back to work, and you'd see Jesse walking around the property, and he would just stop. He forgot where he was going. It took about a year, and Jesse gets arrested for failure to appear on an outstanding warrant associated with not having an insurance certificate or providing or responding to a police officer. So Jesse doesn't come to work, they've locked him up. Where's Jesse? I get a phone call, the kind of collect phone call that you always get. It identifies the company from the, you know, I said, oh, here's one. Yeah, better answer this one. So a good friend of mine, a fellow named Harvey Steinberg, who is an excellent criminal attorney, takes the case pro bono. We get Jesse out of jail. Jesse comes back to work. We await his trial date. In the meantime, Harvey's doing the work behind the scenes. Jesse comes back to work after his court date that morning, some months later, with a big smile on his face. I said, what happened, Jesse? He said, I don't know where you got this Steinberg, but he's the real deal. The judge had the deputy DA apologize to me in the courtroom. I said, now, Jesse, how does that feel going down that road instead of the other one? He said, it feels great. Now, here's the heart of the matter. Just when you think you're making progress, the addiction's still alive. It hasn't gone anyplace. It is fought back every day. Jesse and another step guy are working on the property, and he says, I don't feel well. I want to go home early on a Friday. Saturday morning, we get a call that Jesse's in a coma because he was a heroin addict, and the idea that good heroin was on the street. Jesse's in a coma because of the good heroin. We had to unplug Jesse, and he died. And I want you to think about something. Jesse killed himself. He made that decision. But there were two other people standing there with him, doing heroin with him. And the technique for heroin addiction when you fall out is to pour cold water on your body, reduce your basal metabolic rate, try to get you through until you come back to consciousness. Well, why would you do such a thing? Because the two guys with him with drug offenses, had they called emergency medical, they'd have been back in prison too. So they stayed there with him, trying to save him. So at what point do we start to think about the complicity of the addiction problem in society and what role we actually play in it? So I called Bob. We split the cost of cremating Jesse and spread his ashes. And my granddaughter saw the ashes on the property and said, what's that? I said, that's Jesse. She said, I thought he would be bigger than that. I said, it's not all of him, because some of his motorcycle buddies are spreading his ashes around the country. This is an event that was a daily occurrence in Bob's life. The hopefulness that you have actually made a difference in someone's life to be shattered by a fatal mistake. Bob would say things to people that are coming into the program. This was one of his favorite little tricks. He would pull it occasionally. He would get a new intake guy, and of course he's got the file on the guy, and he says, wow, it says here you like cocaine. You like cold beer too? No, sir, Bob, I quit all that. He said, just answer the question. Do you like cold beer? Come on, everybody likes cold. Yes, Bob, I like cold beer. He said, okay, you like cocaine, cold beer. You smoke a blunt nowadays? Smoke a little reefer? No, I quit that. Do you like smoking marijuana? Yeah, Bob, I like it. He said, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to bring cold beer, cocaine, and marijuana up to your room, deliver it personally. You just have to do one thing for me. What's that, Bob? Tell me a story I have not heard. So this is the life, the roller coaster that occurs when somebody takes on a task like this, and they end up having most of society not understand what they're doing. So we had a little private ceremony before this. I'll read this, hope I can get through it. I didn't the first time, but I wrote this for Bob in a hopes that I could explain quickly what we face. And just as an aside, we started doing weddings at a property I have because to do a wedding, you have to hire the step guys, you have to donate to the STEP program, you have to get involved directly with the STEP program. It's not a third-party transaction. In the 9 years that we've been doing these weddings and all the guys working, I've had one family say to me that they did not want to hire recovering addicts or felons. I said, well, then you can't have your wedding here. Oh, but it means so much to our daughter. I said, I'm sure it does. But I'll tell you what, I'd like to meet your family. So we can have the wedding? No, you still can't have the wedding. Then why in the world would you want to meet our family? Because I've never met a perfect family. And I'd like to meet one. There aren't any. In Glendale, if you want to get a job as a contractor and the bids are equal, the bid goes to the company that hires a homeless person. How else do we solve this problem? Well, they say, I can't insure it. It's like standing in the checkout line and somebody says the computer did it. Well, then turn it off and start thinking. The computer didn't do that. So now we're getting companies to put insurance schemes together for sub-companies that have groups of people that are uninsurable on their own insurance plans. Turner Construction's doing it right now. My Mechanical is doing it. Because if we don't offer them hope through work and salvation through integrity, there's no possible way for this person to succeed. We have to think outside the box. So this is to Bob. Warriors that battle for the truth learn very early on that the first casualty in that battle is always the standard bearer. And that being right is not being righteous. The desire to seek the truth is usually the result of having lived a lie. The struggle, every day to recognize the lie, that's the seeker's mission. Those that know the lie understand its power to deceive. For they in the past were willing to tell the lie to anyone who would fall for it. And every time they told it, it got better. But the lie, like a bad parasite, slowly kills its host and the hosts of the host. The seeker knows the options for those living the lie, and they're universal: prison, death, or sobriety. Excuses. Excuses are the lie's life story. Prison and death are the final act. Those that never lived the lie or knew someone living it, ironically, are quite responsible for supporting it. And some who claim to know it are willing to profit from it. For it's dirty work accusing someone of being a liar, and we always believe it's best left to the experts. Subsequently, no price could be too great to solve this problem. Well, the lie not confronted grows. New hosts with grand missions are paid to eradicate it, while the seeker watches as it hides behind the walls of public opinion. It is safe now to recruit new and highly paid hosts. It now becomes an industry. Effective compassion, the tool of the visionary seeker, is always confused with heartless aggression. The seeker is now called the enemy. This man who sees through the lie, watches it grow, and laughs back at him. But still, he never stops confronting the lie. One liar at a time, the door opens to the truth. The scars of the lie begin to erode his physical being. Still, he marches on. The immortal enemy of the lie, time, now claims the seeker. As his memory beckons new seekers, the fight must be renewed. Who among us will answer the bell? Bob's life story is the story of man, man's narrow escape from annihilation through the razor-thin advantage of good over evil. That has been ensured to us from people like Bob Cote. Men that emerge through their own titanic struggle to fight for the truth and find it. A truth that is seldom recognized by the audience until the fighter has left the ring. The pathway to the truth is taken by few and therefore not well marked. This pathway, step 13, carved by a man with the heart of a lion, the vision of an eagle, the claws of a mother bear, and the mind of a guru, will be widened and cared for in the years to come by as many men as it takes to fill your shoes. That today I swear to my dear friend, Bob Cote.
Listen to the old man. Listen to the old man. Listen to the old man. When you can.